Hello, welcome to the SENSE project. My name's Ian Crawford. I work with SES 13 to 19 Limited, and I'm going to run through the session that we held in April 2019 at Keele University regarding the recruitment, induction, management of STEM supporters or STEM ambassadors or STEM volunteers, depending what you call it in your country. So I'm going to run through the presentation quite quickly, and hopefully you'll pick up some useful tips and ideas about how to do the processes outlined here. So just a reminder, these materials are for educational purposes only, and we don't claim ownership of the materials, and where possible we've credited the items underneath the bar in the PowerPoint. This is not a for-profit project, and the aim of the project is to help young women and other disadvantaged young people into high-quality STEM careers. It's a project sponsored by Erasmus Plus and led by Zelinsky Kraj in the Czech Republic. Okay, so the key aim of the presentation is to enable STEM volunteers, STEM supporters to actually contribute effectively in the classroom to support the STEM agenda. We've listed quite a number of potential objectives which may be relevant to you. So we're going to explore the idea of what a volunteer is. These people are coming in from other backgrounds other than education, so may need help and support. We're going to look at how we might recruit and manage volunteers. We're going to look at some training techniques. Issues around equality are essential for this project, and look at some good practice. At the end, there are some resources you can use. We won't run through those in detail, but I'll give you an idea of some of the materials available and some of the materials you might like to develop yourselves. So first of all, what is a STEM supporter or volunteer, or in the UK we sometimes refer to them as ambassadors? They're a volunteer, so they're a person who's giving up their time to actually share and inspire young people in STEM careers, and probably the STEM career that they themselves are pursuing. They will be a STEM graduate, maybe, not necessarily, so they may have studied at university, or they may have worked in their career in the STEM industry. Hopefully they will be a role model and somebody who can inspire young people. They may come from a company which is large or small. They can be an ex-teacher or lecturer. They can be a retired professional. It could be that they're actually working on a project and this is sort of aligned to the project, so that if you can benefit from dual working, that's fantastic. And what you're providing is a resource for a school or college. So for example, in the United Kingdom, the Institute of Physics will produce lots of resources and ideas you can use in the classroom. So you may be using those resources. You may work for a professional body such as the Chamber of Commerce, which in the United Kingdom helps support local businesses. In the UK, we expect the ambassador to be 17 years or older, so the supporter usually is somebody who has got a bit of maturity, a bit of an age gap between the students who they're working with, but it can go right up to any age. So we've had some brilliant ambassadors who are in their 70s and beyond, so I don't think age is a huge issue. Moving on, so what is a STEM supporter activity? Well, first of all, like we said before, it's voluntary. So the supporter has something they want to communicate with young people, something that they're passionate about, hopefully, and something they want to inspire people into their career. It has to be delivered by an appropriate person. So it's not the sort of thing you can delegate to somebody junior who may not have the experience or know-how or passion even. The activity should be free. So we in the United Kingdom, there should be no payment. There should be no expectation of payment. And it's aimed at students primarily, but also teachers. So a lot of teachers, they want extra CPD because it could be some years since they left industry themselves. And it should be linked to the STEM agenda. So the STEM agenda includes science, technology, engineering, and maths in some way. And it will be often linked to careers-based activities. Now, myself, I'm a business teacher, and I quite often tell my students that science and technology, engineering and maths are all part of the business agenda as well. So it's not like a very sort of strict definition of what is science or technology. Most people are sort of au fait with some science, technology, engineering, or maths. So personally, I have quite a wide view on what STEM is. In the UK, STEM ambassadors can bring lots of things. So for a STEM ambassador, it's a new and exciting challenge. We have many apprentices who are developing their careers in a business or industry, and it's a chance for those people to sort of develop their skills, their communication skills, to actually grow in confidence, to actually understand their own role a little bit better. It is often fun, as the slide suggests, and it's a brilliant thing to put on your UCAS application. UCAS is the process by which you apply to university, or your curriculum vitae, your CV, to say that you've been a STEM ambassador, you've worked in schools, you've run this event or that event. So it has lots and lots of benefits for the volunteer or the ambassador. For teachers, again, it's a real opportunity for the teacher to obtain some CPD, to gain a different perspective, to actually show to their students that this is how people work in industry. So these role models can be very sort of inspirational. And also it can help to bring the curriculum alive. Teachers really do welcome a different perspective approach. And also because the volunteer or the supporter or the ambassador has a successful career, it means that the students and the teachers get a wider perspective of what the STEM careers are available. We've just stressed again that the activities should be free of charge. For students, well, the students get a chance to have another face in front of them. It gives them a different view, perspective again on STEM learning and STEM careers. It gives them a chance to do something different than their studies. So often in the UK, for example, students are focused on exams and passing exams. This is something which not necessarily relaxing, but something different. It's an opportunity for young people to have their stereotypes challenged. One of the stereotypes we are always sort of talking about is engineering, and the fact that engineering careers are available for everybody, not just for men, but it's a career that's irrespective of your background, your race, your sex, everything like that. Everybody can have a successful career in engineering. So these stereotypes can actually lead young people away from successful careers. And what we want to do is, at the end of the day, is to just really infuse the student on the STEM career and the potential of STEM careers in the future. Big companies, they really appreciate the opportunity to get involved in STEM activities. It's a part of their ethical approach, and it enables them to build up networks, to share their branding and promotion of their company. And it's a part of their corporate responsibility. So they see working outside, working in classrooms is really beneficial. And we're familiar with some companies in the UK where actually it is a part of their recruitment process. So it's really valuable for many companies to actually get involved in the STEM process. So why do we need these volunteers? Good question. In the United Kingdom, you'll see in a minute an infograph. There really is a need to encourage more young people into STEM careers so that we can fill the skills gap. And in your own country, you'll have information which is similar, and you'll be able to identify similar gaps in certain industries where recruiting is a problem. This infograph just gives you a little bit of an idea on that. So it suggests that by 2022, there'll be 2.5 million job openings in engineering, and we just haven't got the engineers at the moment to fill those gaps. So we need to recruit young people from school. We need to get people involved in science and maths and technology so that in the future we can meet that demand. So the need for STEM supporters is pretty convincing, and we always add in the element of money. For some students it's a motivator, a big motivator. For some adults it is too. So some research suggests that a STEM career actually makes you better off. So you've got some data there. It's suggested, according to Engineering UK, that a STEM graduate will earn £160,000 more. And if you do if you're a STEM graduate, it's £250,000 more. And Price Waterhouse, large accountancy firm in the UK, they suggest that chemistry and physics graduates will earn on average 30% more than other A-level holders. So it pays to have a career in STEM. Money shouldn't be the only factor, but it is a motivator for many. Again, some latest statistics there about the skills gap and the fact that 72% of all businesses now rely on STEM skills. It's difficult to envisage a business which doesn't use STEM at its heart, whether it's digital technology or whether it's new manufacturing processes. And in the future, it's expected that over half of the jobs, 58% of jobs, will be STEM related. Whether that's technology or science is obviously variable. Again, so some more information here. This was a bit of research that STEM did about backgrounds into sort of A-level choices, and you can see there that there are some subjects where we need to sort of promote science further, and there is some gaps between recruitment of young men and young women into STEM careers. And there seems to be something perhaps that's happening as the students grow older. So at some point in the schools and the students' education, young women are being sometimes turned against certain STEM subjects, and it's something we need to be conscious of and address. Okay, so what are the benefits of using STEM ambassadors, STEM volunteers, STEM supporters? Well, you can see here a couple of infographs that many teachers now don't feel they have the necessary skills to advise students. So the Association of Colleges in 2012 suggested that 82% of teachers think they lack the necessary knowledge. And a further survey by TESS, also in 2012, TESS is the Times Education Supplement, that 53%, 1 in 2 teachers, do not feel confident advising young people about apprenticeships. And that means potentially that there are a lot of students who are not getting up-to-date advice on opportunities in the future. That means that potentially lots of young people are not going down the career paths which are going to close the STEM gap, the skills gap we identified earlier. STEMnet research again, so in 2016 sort of listed the potential benefits of using ambassadors and to address the sort of skills gap for the future. STEMnet research indicated that the impact of a volunteer or supporter in the classroom. So for example here, this first piece of data, 71% of pupils who were taking part in STEM learning programs were more interested in studying science compared to just 44% who had not participated. And there's some other data there you can have a look at. Okay, so what will the supporter do in the classroom? There's huge potential. It could be that they simply talk about their career. It could be that they actually participate in a careers event where students can quiz the ambassador about what they do in their day job and what they enjoy, what they wish that could be done differently. They can actually provide advice on projects. So for example, in the UK we have F1 challenges, green power, lots of challenges where businesses need the support of ambassadors and volunteers in the classroom to give that authenticity, to give that additional level of support. Sometimes, and this does take a bit of careful setting up, you could be a mentor. So the school may give you a bit of training, they may align you to a student who needs some extra support and help, and it could be that over a period of time that you support that student. There's clear protocols that must be followed there in terms of child protection and safeguarding, but it is possible that you could be a mentor. It could be that you do some subject coaching, so that over a period of time you'll visit the classroom and you'll give updates. It might be linked to a project above, it might be linked to their A-level or GCSE study, but it should be linked obviously to your own expertise and specialisms. It could be that if the school is running a STEM club, that you actually visit the STEM club and actually do some activities there. So for example, I was in a school in Sandwell recently where Severn Trent, a big water company, were actually doing experiments on the cleanness, how clean water was, and the things that live in water. The students found it fascinating, and the ambassador loved doing it. In fact, the ambassador, I think they'd done it for 2 or 3 years on the trot that they'd visited that particular school. You might be invited to. You've already been invited to support a project. You might be invited to actually do some judging. So, for example, in the United Kingdom, we have major STEM events where competitions are sort of run and students submit work, and you might be the person who judges that work. Really good fun. These events are celebrations of STEM, and the Big Bang, for example, in Birmingham, has probably a dozen or so competitions, and it's just an easy way to piggyback in and to actually get involved in a STEM competition and work alongside other STEM ambassadors and volunteers too. It might be a chance to network with pupils and parents and teachers. So again, it could be a careers event where the school perhaps has universities and employers, and you have a chance to sort of pitch and promote your business and your career. It could be that you run some experiments, and we'll have more of that later. There's a little link there if you want to look at the video. You might find that useful. So a famous STEM ambassador in the United Kingdom was Tim Peake. Tim, as you know, a couple of years ago spent some time up in space on the space station, and lots and lots of students were asking Tim questions. So the networks were basically literally linking up to Tim on the space station, asking him questions as he floated around in the space station. I mean, that's a very bizarre and specific activity, but it just goes to show that we're not limited to terrestrial activities. A nice little video link there if you go onto the PowerPoint later. Another scheme, National Engineering Competition. This is directed at young women, and again there's a link, and it's about, again, closing the gap, the skills gap, closing the gap between men and women in engineering, and actually showing that engineering is a pretty good career for young women to engage in. Like I said before, there's a nice link there which shows you more information about the actual project. Women in STEM are still underrepresented. It'd be interesting to know what sort of data you have in your own country, but you can see here that only 15% of the workforce is made up of women in the STEM careers. I mean, that's pretty shocking, really. And again, in terms of management elsewhere, there are big gaps. So it's something we need to be working at. And this project, one of the big things of this project is to actually promote more women into science and technology careers. Space is messy and kids love mess. Again, there's a great little video here. This is a person who struggled at school and perhaps thought that STEM careers weren't for her. And now she's a world-renowned space scientist, absolutely passionate and loves what she talks about. And again, she's a superb role model. So these are the role models we need to be reaching out towards, and you will have them in your communities, people who want to share their experiences. The BBC, major TV company in the United Kingdom, they've had a recent campaign to promote women in not just in science, but again, it's worth having a look at this link. It gives you some really good role models and case studies you can use in the classroom. The long-term analysis of the impact of STEM. So here you can see some data from as part of the project, STEM evaluated its impact, and you can see there's some quite significant numbers suggested. 58% of students said they were motivated to enter a STEM career or apprenticeship. 86% they had a greater awareness of STEM careers, etc., etc. So STEM has had an impact in the United Kingdom, and this has been thoroughly evaluated. So, working in schools. For many volunteers, it may be the first time they've been back to a school for some time. So these slides are really aimed at sort of inducting and supporting the volunteer, the supporter, back into the school. Some key principles we think are important. So we don't see the supporter, the volunteer, as taking the role of the teacher. Teachers are the classroom managers. They manage the discipline issues. You should certainly never be left alone in a classroom with students at any time. This is a safeguarding issue for both yourself and for the students. So it is important that the students supervise the students and discipline the students as well. Having said that, health and safety in the United Kingdom places the onus on the individual, so we're all responsible for our own health and safety. Having said that, if you're going into the classroom, it's a good idea to actually talk to the teacher about any activities, especially if you're planning on blowing anything up or doing anything which has potential danger. So talk to the teacher about the protocols for managing that. If a teacher tells you anything which is confidential, it's vital that you don't pass this information on. Really important. And likewise, if a student tells you something, it's really important that if a student tells you something potentially which you're disturbed about, you must pass that information on. There's no confidentiality between you and the student. So if a student told you something which you were alarmed about, you must actually tell the teacher. You may even want to say to the student, if you do tell me something, I will have to pass it on. So confidentiality needs to be managed carefully in the classroom. Some interesting questions here. If a student adds you on Facebook, the answer is no. Delete the request. It's nice that they've asked you, but it's not appropriate. If they want to contact you about an activity, again, they shouldn't be contacting you directly through your email. You need to basically channel the request through the classroom teacher. Photographs. Most schools have strict rules on the use of photographs. This could be to do with child protection and safeguarding. The school may well have permissions, in which case you need to talk to the class teacher about whether you can take a photograph or not. Sometimes photographs from behind can be taken. So you might take a picture of a class of students working. Again, if the student can be identified, then you probably shouldn't use it. So again, it's important that you do observe these rules. And then there's a question about boundaries between students and young people. You've got the answers to those questions there. The fourth question about what do you think the boundaries between adults and students, non-contact, we think is advisable. Occasionally you might have to, through the hurly-burly of the classroom, there may be some contact, but direct contact we strictly warn against for the safeguarding of both yourself and the student. Back to safeguarding again, we think it's really important that certainly in the UK, anybody who wants to work in a classroom has to have a DBS or child protection certificate. You'll have your own equivalents. This is important again to protect the students and to protect yourself. And typically in the United Kingdom, if we go into a classroom or school, we're asked to present the DBS or certificate in order to show that we're safe to work with young people. In our country, we have a variety. The STEM programme has a variety of insurance liabilities. It's probably something you need to talk to the school about. It's not a big issue, but if something goes wrong in the classroom, it's not the volunteer's responsibility in terms of insurance. So it's something that you need to think about. Okay, so what are you going to do? So the next few slides, which we'll run through very quickly, are just a series of activities and ideas of things that you can do in the classroom. I think the key thing is how can you make the activity as interactive as possible. Adults are very good at talking at young people, but actually learning often comes through interaction, both with their peers and through the activity. Think about what subject you're actually going to sort of talk about. Think about what you're passionate about. What information do I need to show students? What are the career links? What are the links with the STEM careers that you're trying to promote? This is a simple activity which students really enjoy. So we ask the students in each row of three, to identify an odd one out. There's no strict answers to these questions, to be honest, and we have some really funny debates about who is the odd one out. But what it does, it gets the students exploring and thinking about the careers which that they can potentially do. It's very rare that anybody knows that a horologist is somebody who maintains and mends and repairs watches, for example. But where we work in Birmingham, there is what we call the jewellery quarter, and horology is a very sort of lucrative career for somebody who actually takes an apprenticeship or studies horology as a degree. So we get students to think about different career programmes and routes. Diversity is really important. This whole project really is about diversity. It's not about telling this, it's about recognising that the audience, that the classrooms we work in have students from lots of different backgrounds. It is really helpful as a volunteer that you can get some information from the class teacher about what is the audience like, what is the class like, what is their level of learning, so you can actually pitch your session at a really effective rate. It's really important that we don't perpetuate stereotypes. So think very carefully about your language. It's not he, it's he or she, or it's the student. So really important that we don't actually sort of perpetuate the stereotypes we're trying to get rid of. Some links here. So these are some resources which we've developed on previous projects. So, for example, the STEM in Action was the original the C project. Eureka was a project which looked at gifted and talented. The TIP project was looking at vocational links, and STEM.org here is just a really super database of resources you can use. So don't feel that you have to recreate everything. You can actually use resources which are already in existence, projects, competitions. So the management of volunteers is an interesting one. This project has a finite time span. The resources are limited, so I think we've got to be realistic in what we can achieve. Having said that, I think if we can keep a database of approved supporters, so we make a note of who the supporter is, what their expertise is, what type of activity they'd like to be involved in, what their availability is at time. This is really helpful. Likewise, you may want to keep a link of the links and information about the schools you work with. So you may approach several schools saying, what would be great for you? What are you studying? What are you working on? And then what you can do is you can match the ambassadors with the schools, and it does happen. I can remember a couple of years ago I was working with a school in Birmingham where they wanted a biochemist, and we were able to interrogate the database, and there was a biochemist literally from the university, literally living next to the school, and they were absolutely delighted to go into the school and talk about their career. So sometimes it does work really, really well. Other times it's a bit more problematic, but if you've got that information about the ambassadors and the supporters, and you've got the information about the schools, it gives you a chance. Promotion of activities through school relationships. So if the school has a calendar of events and activities, this can be a fantastic way of sort of piggybacking onto what they're doing and perhaps widening it and supporting what the school's doing. Probably a good idea to have a network meeting if you can. So this could be quite an informal event where you perhaps invite 10, 15, 20 ambassadors and schools just to come in and have a drink, have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, maybe share a bit of food, and just to get them talking to each other so that they can actually sort of find out a little bit about each other. It actually is a really positive impact. You may want to offer some training. So these slides, for example, you could use as a training event for new volunteers. Obviously edit the slides a little bit, but very powerful. Makes the ambassador, the volunteer feel valued, gives them the confidence to then go into the classroom. So we've covered a wide range of activities during this particular presentation, from promotion and recruitment, induction, health and safety, and developing links and training and resources. There's a lot of information here to get through, so hopefully you found it useful. Excuse my phone going off there, embarrassing. Anyway, listen, so I hope you found that useful. Like I said, there's a lot of content here. Do explore the links and just be really positive. I do think you have to be careful. We have to be careful about what we can actually achieve, but actually this is a nice framework for actually developing a approach to supporters and volunteers in the workplace. So this is Ian Crawford checking out, and I hope you enjoyed this Snagit video.